My first journey to Xizang was back in 2011. My first aerial shoot in Xizang took place in 2016. With the implementation of new drone regulations, I have witnessed the rise and end of my aerial photography journey. It is time to create a definitive film. As a retrospective of this past decade, this entire project was filmed and produced independently. Hence, the perspectives and preferences naturally carry a personal touch. Over the next 2 hours, let us immerse ourselves in the breathtaking landscapes of Xizang. The journey begins in Nayinchi, moving in a clockwise direction, passing through Shannon, Shagatz, Engari, Nag, and Chamdo, before finally returning to Nayingshi to complete the circle. And now, we begin. The whole story starts at our camp. We are near Jacques village, right in the heart of the Yarlung Songpo. It's already our 5th day in the mountains. I'm waiting for a clear day, because a clear sky reveals Gayola, Peri, and Namhabarwa. In this isolated place, there is no satellite signal due to the heavy clouds, so I can't make any calls. I came here following a wildlife research team. They are retrieving infrared cameras. Tomorrow is the 6th day, and I'll be forced to leave this forest paradise. This morning, the weather I'd been wishing for actually cleared up. I quickly launched the drone for an aerial shoot. In the distance lie the peaks of Namhabarwa. Unfortunately, the main peak is hidden by clouds. But even without the clouds, Namhabarwa isn't particularly spectacular from this angle. The most magnificent mountain here is Jiala Peri. The Parlong Songpo sits at 2,000 meters, while the Snowy Peaks Tower at over 7,000 meters. The drop is so immense that a single frame just cannot capture it all. Beneath the sea of clouds is where the Parlong Songpo merges into the Yarlung Songpo. The tragic part is that just as the weather turned perfect, I had only one full battery left. This is a panoramic photo. I didn't shoot in RAW format back then, so the overexposed snow on the peaks can't be recovered anymore. Gyala Piri and Namhabarwa are the snowy lighthouses of Nayingxi, the very core of eastern Xizang. We will see them again and again in the chapters ahead. I brought a total of 3 drone batteries. I used up the first 2 batteries yesterday. That was yesterday when I thought the clear sky would never come. So, I spent them filming the Great Bend of the Yarlung Songpo. This is Jacques village, located right at the Great Bend of the Yarlung Songpo. Back in 2013, I took a detour to trek here while cycling the Sichuan-Xizang highway, and that's how my connection with this place began. In 2016, I trekked in alone for aerial filming. At that time, the route followed the Parlong Songpo the whole way, and you could reach Jacques in just 1 day. Back then, the entire village had already been relocated. Since 2017, the suspension bridge over the river has been broken. You have to change routes and hike over the mountains to reach Jacques, which takes 3 days. This aerial shoot was done in 2023. Let's compare the 2 aerial shots. You can see a landslide occurred right at the Great Bend. This is where the Parlang Songpo merges with the Yarlung Songpo. 100 years ago, a British explorer arrived at the confluence of these 2 rivers. He was the famous plant hunter, Frank Kingdon Ward. In 1924, Kingdon Ward set off from Paitown and crossed the Xingqi La Pass to get here. His mission was to investigate whether a massive waterfall existed in the heart of the Yarlung Songpo Canyon. and to collect botanical specimens and seeds. He later wrote about this expedition in his book, The Riddle of the Zangpo Gorges. Kingdom Ward published over 20 books in his lifetime, exploring many parts of eastern Xizang, western Yunnan, and India. To this day, there are many routes he explored in Xizang that I have still not been able to reach. When I first heard that a foreigner had entered the Great Canyon a century ago, I heard it from the villagers of Mencheng village, but I didn't believe them at first. Kingdom Ward will appear many more times in this film, as he explored so many places. In truth, Kingdom Ward wasn't the first person to explore the Great Canyon, though his predecessors didn't venture as deep as he did. The earliest recorded foreigner was Kinthup from Sikkim. He came to Xizang between 1880 and 1884 on a surveying mission. In what is now Dangzhou village in Luleng town, he was sold into slavery by his companion. He worked as a tailor to survive. After buying his freedom, he went on to explore the Great Canyon and Medog. When he finished, he returned to Sikkim. 30 years later, the Great Canyon saw new visitors. In 1913, British military officer Frederick Bailey, along with surveyors, explored the Great Canyon. They entered Medog from the southern region of Xizang. However, none of the 4 people in the footage managed to reach the core area. We won't dive too deeply into their adventure just yet, as it will be mentioned again later. According to the latest road conditions in 2025, the suspension bridge over the Parlang Sangpo has been rebuilt. It now takes only 1 day to get from Peilong Township to Jacques. Whether a trekking route will be developed in the future, I don't know. Somewhere in this aerial shot, hidden from view down by the Yarlang Sangpo River, the research team is retrieving their infrared cameras. In recent years, the second Xizang Plateau scientific expedition has been in full swing. I've seen the photos captured by these infrared cameras, toucans, leopard cats, clouded leopards, and more. Unfortunately, it's highly unlikely to catch these animals with a drone. The core area of the Yarlang Sangpo Canyon has an incredible ecosystem with thriving flora and fauna. But since it has nothing to do with aerial photography, we won't dive into it further. One thing we should mention is the few houses on the right side of the screen. This place is called Mencheng Village. I trekked here in 2013. It was the friends here who told me that a British explorer had entered 100 years ago. I also learned that the Monpa people of Mencheng originally came from Bhutan. This migration was later confirmed in Kingdom Ward's book. By now, some of you might be wondering whether I managed to film the Sangpo Badong waterfall. The answer to that question will be revealed later in the video. Let's leave the Great Canyon behind for a moment. We head back to Bomi. This is Kangmu village in Bomi County along National Highway 3. My first journey to Xizang was back in 2011, traveling in a hard-seat train. The young man sitting next to me was very familiar with Xizang. I still remember his general appearance to this day. At the time, I asked him where in Xizang I could find a place like that. You know, where there's snow up on the mountains, but the grass down below is still green. Growing up in northern China, I was used to distinct seasons. It's hard to see snow and green grass in the same frame. I think the same goes for most people living at low altitudes. That's why I have this deep fascination with such scenery. That young man told me that Naingshi has exactly that kind of landscape. Back in Bomi, there's a scenic spot called the Gang Cloud Spruce Forest. On the way there, you pass through a village called Gangmai. This village is incredibly beautiful in spring and summer. Over the years, I've been to Bomi many times. Let me give you a quick overview of Bomi's weather. Bomi gets a lot of rain and snow in the spring, so clear days are quite rare. But once it clears up, it looks exactly like a painting. Moving into July and August, the highland barley turns golden and the snow on the mountains melts. At this time, the scenery along Highway 318 isn't great, but the high-altitude mountains are breathtaking. In high-altitude areas, like around Galang, all kinds of rare alpine flowers start to bloom. As winter sets in, clear days increase, making it the perfect time to admire the snow-capped mountains. Inside the Gangcloud spruce forest, there is a grass lake. When the rainy season arrives, the Parlong Songpo River swells and flows backwards into it. This creates a unique sight of a river within a lake. It's a fantastic spot for kayaking. Opposite Gangmai village lie the ruins of the Galing Palace, which used to be the administrative center of Bomi. Because Bomi was cut off by surrounding mountains, it remained independent for a long time and saw its fair share of wars. When Bailey arrived in Bomi in 1913, the administrative center had already moved to what is now Zuwaka village. In 1930, the king of Bomi was defeated by the Kushag government. After his defeat, the king of Bomi took his family and fled to India via Zayu. You can ask an AI about the king of Bomi Wangchen Dundop for more details. Gowlan Lake is located at the entrance of the Peach Blossom Valley. We're now going to explore the Peach Blossom Valley. First up is the area around Gutong village. In May, the rapeseed flowers bloom yellow, the barley is vibrant green, and there is still plenty of snow on the mountains. Continuing upstream, we reach Qingduo Tiang. Ahead of Qingduo town lies a massive moraine ridge. Behind the moraine ridge are the Zhexi Valley and snow-capped peaks. In all of Xizang, the Peach Blossom Valley has the most numerous and spectacular glacial remains. Through aerial photography, I got to know professors and PhDs who study the glaciers in this region. Thanks to them, I received some expert insights into the glaciers here. The moraine ridge in Zhexi Valley was formed during the last glacial period, about 10,000 to 20,000 years ago. When the glaciers began to grow during the last glacial period, sea levels dropped accordingly. At the last glacial maximum, the sea level was over 100 meters lower than it is today. What is now the Bohai Bay was entirely dry land. North America was even more extreme. Half the continent was covered by an ice sheet thousands of meters thick. When the last ice age ended and sea levels rose, some coastal civilizations were submerged. Doggerland, beneath the English Channel today, is one such example. We humans are often like that. If we can't see it, we don't quite believe it. Even though geography textbooks tell us the Earth went through ice ages, it's only when you see a massive moraine ridge with your own eyes that you truly believe it. Zhexi village was once buried under glaciers hundreds of meters thick. Today, it is a paradise on Earth, with only the distant snow-capped mountains left to bear witness to the passage of time. Leaving the Zhexi Valley, we head to the neighboring Beipulong Valley, also known as the Biyu pasture. Kayaking here looks pretty relaxing, doesn't it? In truth, to get 2 minutes of footage, I had to carry the boat for 3 hours. The river at Biyu pasture is shallow and not suitable for long-distance paddling. So while it looks great in photos, it's not really meant for kayaking as a sport. The two mountains behind the bayou pasture are the same peaks seen from the Juxi Valley. There doesn't seem to be a standard name for them, so I won't mention their names. In Xizang, there is often disagreement over the names of lesser-known peaks. But that doesn't matter. What matters is that the summits look incredible. From here, you can see the snowy lighthouse of eastern Xizang Namha Barwa. I once photographed the summit twice, just a month apart, and found that in just 1 month, the ice and snow on the peak had changed significantly. The circled area here has started to break apart, heading deeper into the Peach Blossom Valley. The peach blossoms here are even more vibrant than those at the valley entrance. This was filmed on April 6, 2025, at Linkhang Village in Yuksu Township. In May 2020, after the pandemic stabilized, I rode my motorcycle into Xizang and arrived at Peach Blossom Valley. I saw a monastery nestled beneath the snow-capped mountains that was exceptionally beautiful. With the permission of the monks, I captured aerial footage of the monastery. This monastery is called Yuren Monastery. A few years later, a PhD student researching glaciers happened to send me an article. The document contained a photo of Peach Blossom Valley, which featured this very same Yuren Monastery. After aligning similar angles and confirming it was the same monastery, I was completely captivated by this photograph. The photo was taken in 1935. Who was the photographer? And what were they doing here? With the help of AI's powerful search capabilities, I opened a door to the past. The photo was taken by a British expedition team. In 1935, they entered eastern Xizang from Burma to explore the Salween River. They spent nearly 2 years mapping the Salween Basin, later publishing 2 books, one of which is titled The Salween. The expedition route map in the book left me quite astounded. This team was likely the most knowledgeable group on Earth regarding the Salween River. They explored every tributary and valley in succession. Many mountain passes they used are now abandoned. The photo was most likely taken by Ronald Kaulbach, a member of the team. He came from a military family and had a forceful personality. While studying at Cambridge, he once threw a wealthy student into a pond. In 1933, Kaulbach briefly accompanied Kingdon Ward on an expedition. However, he was unable to enter Xizang at that time due to permit issues. In 1935, his own expedition team was granted permission to enter Xizang. The photo of Yuren Monastery was taken on the road from Peach Blossom Valley to Banbar. Shortly after the Salween expedition ended, World War II broke out. Kaulbach went undercover in Burma, commanding over 10,000 Karen guerrillas and eliminating tens of thousands of Japanese troops. Let's continue introducing other members of the Salween expedition. John Hanbury Tracy was Kaulbach's university classmate and close friend. He was primarily responsible for the surveying and mapping during the Salween expedition. During World War II, He was dispatched to the Middle East for intelligence work. Finally, let's talk about Sherpa Lua. Before the Salween expedition, he reached the summit of Mount Kamet. This mountain is visible from Zanda County in Ingari. He suffered severe frostbite during the Kamet ascent, losing most of his toes. Besides Kamet, he also participated in climbs of Everest, Kangsanjunga, and Nanga Parbat. During this Salween expedition, Kalbak discovered many mounds in the Bodui Valley. He once thought these were tombs from an ancient battlefield, as Urim Monastery itself sits atop such a mound. In fact, these are remnants of ancient glaciers, known as moraine hills. Near Urim Monastery, there is another temple called Gongwu Monastery. Curiously, Kalbak's books make no mention of this monastery. Behind the monastery stands the 6,000-meter-high Urim Peak. We fly to the summit of Urim Peak to overlook the entire Peach Blossom Valley. Jiala, Peri, and Namha Barwa reappear in the distance. Peach Blossom Valley is a place worthy of deep exploration. Examples include the Urin Kora Trek and the mountain route Kalbak took to Banbar County. I trekked to a nearby lake, commonly known as Bear Lake. Its official name should be Kopu Lake. I first came across a video of Bear Lake in 2021, filmed by Master Po from Bomi. In June 2025, I hired a local guide to take me trekking to Bear Lake. I posted the video of the trek online, and to my surprise, it immediately attracted a large number of backpackers. In truth, I feel conflicted about these off-the-beaten-path spots in Xizang. I want to share their beauty, yet I fear they will become internet-famous tourist traps. Once they become popular, they face issues like littering, forced fees by villages, and mandatory guide requirements. Glaciers once developed here at Bear Lake, eventually forming the lake body. The lake's outlet forms a waterfall. Such extreme scenery is rare even in Xizang. Rhododendrons bloom by the lakeshore. On my way up, I saw rare plants like Mechanopsis, Sulfurea, and Cypripedium himalaicum. Our exploration of Peach Blossom Valley ends here. Next, we head to the Yegong Canyon. Dense forests cover the entrance to the Yegong Canyon. Asia's tallest tree grows here. The tree king is a Cupressus torolosa. The tree king was only discovered by a scientific expedition in 2023. This tree is approximately 1,450 years old and reaches a height of 102 meters. To grow to such a height, the environment is crucial. The tree king grows on the shady side of the mountain where rainfall is abundant. The top of the tree absorbs moisture directly from the air. However, the very top of the tree king has withered. The tree king is not alone. There are over 20 other Himalayan cypresses in this area exceeding 90 meters. Could a taller tree be discovered one day? Personally, I believe it is possible, because eastern Xizang contains so many unexplored regions. The tree king was found in 2023. Before that, I had passed this spot many times, yet I never noticed this forest of giants, even though it is right by the roadside. Thus, an amateur remains an amateur after all. Venturing deeper into Xizang, we reach the site of the Xizang debris flows. On our current maps, there was once a lake called Xizang, so in this area, which has now vanished. Let's start from the beginning. In 1900, a debris flow occurred in Jamunang Gully, on the right side of the screen. The river was blocked, forming a barrier lake, and the Xizang Sangpo stopped flowing for a month. Later, the lake water overflowed, but the barrier dam was not completely washed away. Xizang Lake existed for 100 years until a cataclysmic event occurred in 2000. On April 9, 2000, another massive landslide and debris flow erupted in Jamunang Gully. This scale was even larger, turning Xizang into a gargantuan barrier lake. 2 months later, the dam breached. The resulting massive flood destroyed bridges along the banks. Downstream regions in India and Bangladesh also suffered from this disaster. Hundreds of lives were lost, and the flood affected the homes of millions. NASA's website features a series of images showing the changes before and after the debris flow. They show the stages: before the flow, the barrier lake phase, and the state after the dam breach. Since then, Xizang has returned to its pre-1900 appearance. The aforementioned Frederick Bailey arrived in Xizang in July 1913. He recorded the locals' descriptions of the barrier lake. Locals said the Jamunang debris flow occurred in the year of the monkey, as that was a year for the Zari Kora. Based on this calculation, the debris flow should have occurred in 1896. Today, the landslide mass is completely covered with pine trees. When the downstream roads of Xizang are damaged, there is another mountain path leading to Dengju in Luleng. In the summer of 1935, Kingdon Ward crossed the mountains via the Sabla Pass. Generally speaking, Ward was a relatively pure scientific explorer. In contrast, Bailey and other explorers often carried political agendas. The Xizang before us has undergone a transformation from river to lake and back over a century. Personally, I am particularly fond of Xizang. It has a low elevation of only about 2,200 meters, surrounded by snow-capped peaks. In Xizang, second only to Mad Dog, spring arrives earliest in Xizang. Large numbers of black-necked cranes and common cranes winter here, flying away in April. Spring in eastern Xizang brings heavy rain and snow. Avalanches are frequent in the Yegong Canyon. As summer arrives, we return to Yegong once more. In 1935, Ward set out from Yegong and followed the valley all the way to Naiyu. We also explore upstream along the Yegong Sangpo. The southern side of the canyon is the shady slope, giving rise to numerous waterfalls. These waterfalls all originate from the glaciers and snowpack on the mountain peaks. Ward documented his expeditions with writings that combined professional knowledge with local customs and daily life. Consequently, his books were very popular bestsellers. Ward was a botanical expert with profound knowledge of plant life. He was also well-versed in geology and glaciology. During his expeditions in Xizang, Ward took away a vast number of plant specimens and seeds. These greatly enriched the gardens of Europe. Thus, Xizang made Ward's career, while Ward contributed records that allow us to understand Xizang's past. While Ward was exploring Yegong, the guerrilla leader Callback was also on expedition in eastern Xizang, likely around Zaiyu. On the right bank of the Yegong River lies the picturesque Langyu village, near Bagai Township. Continuing upriver, we arrive at the ancient Rika village. Ward's book highlights Rika village. He estimated there were over 80 log cabins and more than 300 residents. On clear winter days, many snow mountains are visible from Rika. In those days, the trekking paths were extremely treacherous. The way to Naiyu required traversing cliffside trails. Let's pause our tracking of Ward's route for now and explore a hidden paradise. The road to this hidden gem follows a tributary of the Yegong Sangpo. As of 2025, it has been upgraded to a paved asphalt road. The end of the road is Longpu village, situated on a flat pasture. Through the gaps in the mountains, distant glaciers are visible. I once explored them, but those glaciers lacked distinct features. I also set up infrared cameras on the nearby mountains. Unfortunately, the placement was poor, and no wildlife was captured. I only got hundreds of photos of domestic yaks grazing in the wild. Our exploration ends here. Returning to Yegong again, it is already winter. Compared to Peach Blossom Valley, we find that the ancient glacial remnants in Yegong are not obvious. This is mainly due to intense geological changes that have erased the glacial traces. Only careful identification reveals the remains of moraine ridges on the mountainsides. There is a valley in the direction of Beiyu village in Yegong Township. The branches of the valley contain many glaciers. China's longest maritime glacier is located here, called the Kaken Glacier. In literature, the length of the Kaken Glacier is recorded as 35 kilometers. However, with the melting in recent years, the data may need updating. Next to the Kaken Glacier is the Ruogo Glacier. In September 1993, Hunters from Yegong Township were hunting on the Ruaguo Glacier and discovered aircraft wreckage at an altitude of 4,100 meters. They immediately reported it to the government, and the Xizang military district sent personnel to follow the hunters into the mountains for investigation. It was identified as a crashed hump root transport plane from World War II. In 1944, this C-46 transport plane, numbered for 123862, was returning to India from Kunming. It lost its way due to weather conditions and crashed in Yegong. All 5 American crew members perished. In 1994, China handed over the remains of the 5 crew members recovered during the search to the United States. During World War II, another hump root plane lost its way but successfully landed near today's Sami Monastery in Shannon. All crew members were safe. This is considered the first plane to fly from Kunming to Lhasa. Ending our exploration of Yegong, we return to National Highway 318. This is the Gangbu Glacier, south of Leiyu Township. In the era of Ward and Bailey's expeditions, the administrative center of the Lulong area was Dongzhujiang. It was here that the tailor Kinthup was sold into slavery. A jiang was equivalent to a county-level administration. Dongzhu was once the confluence of several roads. Today, the Sichuan-Xizang Railway passes through the Dongzhu Valley. Opposite the Dongzhu Valley is Jibagangre. In 1935, Ward crossed the mountains from Dongzhu into Yegong. In an earlier expedition in 1924, Ward took the Nambu La Pass from Dongzhu to Basamso. Today, this is an abandoned ancient path, traversed only by a few outdoor experts. We also arrive at Basamso. In Ward's books, monasteries were also referred to as priories or abbeys, although we Chinese do not call them that, literally. Practicing the way Shudao fits the function of a monastery perfectly. While Ward was trekking and surveying in 1935, a scholar was conducting research in Ngari, Xizang. This man was Giuseppe Tucci, a master of Xizang religion and art. Tucci's expeditions to Xizang were supported by the Mussolini government. However, regarding Xizang, Tucci generally maintained political correctness, so his books could be published in China. In contrast, Bailey was not a good person. Basamso is a glacial lake left behind by the retreat of the last glacial period. There are numerous moraine ridges near Basam. So, in my 2022 release, Heavenly Xizang, I borrowed a research paper to introduce moraine dating. Later, the author of the paper saw my video and added me on WeChat. That video was criticized by netizens for borrowing too many academic elements, making it sleep in. Therefore, I have adjusted the direction for this documentary. By the way, if any footage in my videos is of value for academic research, please contact me. I will provide it for free. Like Peach Blossom Valley, Basamso once developed glaciers over 100 kilometers long. However, Peach Blossom Valley did not leave behind a lake. There are several valleys upstream of Basam, so where retreating glaciers hide. The corresponding lakes are Shinso, Pugongluo, So, and Zhongso. Before leaving Basam, so here is a photo of the lake island taken by Ward in 1924. After exploring Basamso, Ward went to Jula Township to rest at Jula Monastery. When Ward arrived at Jula Monastery, some changes were occurring. Over 60 monks were being expelled for violating precepts. At its peak, Jula Monastery had over 800 people. Ward's travelogues often recorded trivial matters, giving us a new understanding of that era. For example, at Jula Monastery, he actually ate biscuits made in Australia. While making the video, I found a photo that included Jula Monastery. Jula Monastery is located at the confluence of two rivers. One tributary of these rivers originates from the Neilong Glacier. We walk upstream along the other river. Along the way, we pass a granite stone forest called Dorje Tason rocks. There are large distributions of granite in the Gangbogamda area. The Jula River Basin has a wetland that is very suitable for rafting. The water is shallow and gentle. Ward's 1924 expedition went all the way to the end at Penga village, then crossed the mountains to Lahari County. In the 1935 expedition, he came from Yagong to Niu. After passing the Yiga Glacier, he continued westward, then crossed the Luochen La Pass to arrive at Penga village again. We also come to Haba, so near Penga village. I was filming Haba So from the air in 2020 when I discovered a beautiful glacial waterfall. The exploration of the Basam So area ends here. We return to Lulong once more. Our current National Highway 318 connects Nyingsi and Lulong via the Sirkim La Pass. But before the highway was built, where was the pass? The answer is the Demo La Pass. The Demo La Pass, which has become popular on short video platforms in recent years, was traversed by Bailey and Ward 100 years ago. Actually, it's a bit unfair to say that these roads were all forged by the local people. While Ward was panting and crossing the Sabla Pass to Yegong, he saw a Xizang mother carrying her child over the pass. What we consider a 5-star trekking route today was merely a common path back then. Bailey's attempt to explore the core of the Grand Canyon failed because the local Mampa people he encountered refused to cooperate. Now we arrive at Lulang. Many people have visited Lulang, but few notice that the area near Lulang Gangso is actually the terminal moraine of a glacier. I surprisingly only discovered this by reading Ward's travelogues. In Ward's time, Lulong was just a small village under the Dongzhuzhang. He probably never imagined how prosperous today's Lulong would become. My first visit to Lulong was in 2013, during my bicycle trip. The past decade has witnessed earth-shaking changes in Xizang. For instance, the high-voltage power towers on the hills, erected along the Sichuan-Xizang Highway, began operating in 2018. The future Sichuan-Xizang Railway will also draw power from here. Ward and Bailey's travelogues repeatedly mention a village called Dongbakai. This village leads to the Beifangtai viewing platform. However, Ward and the others never actually went there. Bafantai is the premier location for photographing Namha Barwa. In summer, Bafangtai is home to many rare plants, such as Meconopsis and Rheumnobila. Bailey was the first to discover the blue poppies in the Lulang area. Europeans have a mystical fascination with blue flowers. Ward collected the seeds of these blue poppies and brought them back to Britain, astounding the European public. Another question that concerned Ward was whether Gyala Peri sits on the main axis of the Himalayas. Ward believed that Gyala Peri did not belong to the Himalayan range. Today, we know he was mistaken. Since the liberation of Xizang, our country has conducted large-scale scientific expeditions. The second comprehensive scientific expedition is currently underway. Our understanding of Xizang has undergone a revolutionary transformation. Namha Barwa marks the eastern starting point of the Himalayas. For the next part of our journey, we will travel west along the Himalayas. First, we descend to Dalim village in the Grand Canyon. The winter mist shrouds the river surface. Over 150 years ago, The British already knew of the downstream Brahmaputra River and the upstream Yarlung Sangpo, but they did not know if they were the same river. The Grand Canyon remains one of the few unknown regions on this planet. Thus, Kinthup of Sikkim was the first to embark on this journey of exploration. No one would have expected that fewer people can reach the core area today than 150 years ago. Now, let's rotate the camera 180 degrees, turning our backs to Namhabarwa. 2 kilometers downstream from Pai Town, the main project of the Medog hydropower station is located. Next, let's talk about this project of the universe, the Medog hydropower station. When I trekked through the Great Bend in the past, I encountered a team from a design institute. Everyone felt that the Medog hydropower station might not start for another 50 years. To my surprise, work has already begun. The engineering design involves building a dam at Pai Town to divert water into a tunnel. The tunnel will pierce through the Himalayas with a vertical drop of 2,500 meters, featuring a 5-stage cascade power station. At the same time, a larger regulatory reservoir was built in the upstream city of Malin. We continue westward to the Buddha Palm Sand Dunes. This footage was shot in 2017, before it was fenced off. Continuing west, we arrive at Zhangde Town in Nang County, Neyingshi. The mixed forests are turned yellow by the autumn wind. Several interesting lakes are hidden in the high reaches of these valleys. In particular, blood red lakes are quite rare. Finally, the Nayinchi section ends, and we enter the Loka region. In Loka, there is a high-altitude lake, the sacred lake, Lamo Lasso. It holds a supreme position in the Gelug school, believed to reveal reincarnations. A few years ago, filming was prohibited, and as of 2025, the scenic area is closed. This footage was captured in 2016. Continuing west, we reach Dakla Gampo Monastery in Diaka County. Founded in 1121, it is the ancestral monastery of the Kagyu school. The Kagyu school has 4 major and 8 minor subsects. One minor subsect is the Drukpa Kagyu, which later became the national religion of Bhutan. Along the Yarlung Sangpo in Jiaka County, there are numerous massive boulders. These boulders are embedded with pebbles, resembling concrete, called Malos conglomerate. Its formation is related to plate collisions and the uplift of the plateau. Next, we head south to Jajia Monastery in Zari Township, Lhnz County. It belongs to the Drukpa Kagyu and is a starting point for the Zari Kora. Every year of the monkey, a grand pilgrimage is held. Bailey and Ward both reached this vicinity. During the year of the monkey pilgrimage in 1944, a monk completed the Zari Kora while carrying a gun. The Zari Kora in those days had a mortality rate possibly exceeding 5%. Before the liberation of Xizang, this monk left via Jiadong and India. He was a Han Chinese, born in Nanjing in 1916, named Xing Suji, with the Dharma name Lobsang Phunsak. He later served as a visiting professor at the University of Washington and published a quest for Buddha Dharma in the land of snows. Master Xing lived until September 2014, passing away at the age of 98. This book introduces the arduous experiences of his pilgrimage. Through it, we gain an understanding of the complex historical environment of the Zari sacred mountain. following the Himalayas westward. Between Kuju Township in Zona City and Banbar Township in Ladrak County, there is a mountain pass called the Jimogongli Pass, with an altitude of 5,446 meters. Next, we arrive at Karchu Monastery in Lakangqiang. In summer, Karchu Monastery is often shrouded in mist and clouds. The wildlife feeding at Karchu Monastery is a major draw for tourists. Near Lakang is Lezhao Township. Lezhao is close to Bhutan. Within its jurisdiction, some new resettlement villages are worth a visit, such as Gilwubu and Dimalang. However, they do not offer top-tier scenery. There is a decent waterfall near Laozhao Township as well. Next, we come to Pinling. Pinling So became an internet sensation in 2025. However, Xizang has many similar landscapes. Pinling So is not necessarily the pinnacle. The snow mountains and lakes in this area are likely familiar to everyone, so I will skip the introduction. In Say Township of Ladrak County, there is the Gangzhangpu Road leading to the Bhutanese border. This road can lead us to several glaciers. One of them is the Kogalong Glacier. Ending our exploration of Say Township, we head to the northern slope of Kula Kangri. At the foot of Mount Karjiang, there is a lake at an altitude of over 5,400 meters that freezes in winter. Let me tell you a horror story. Guess where the most dangerous spot is when such a glacial lake freezes? The answer is the area near the glacier where meltwater is constantly flowing in. I slid over on an ice sled and found water seeping through the ice. Now let's take an aerial look at Karjiang, Kulakangri, and Gankar Plensum. Continuing our border journey, we arrive at Pumayangkal. Most lakes in Xizang have been thoroughly studied by researchers. If you want a deeper understanding, you can directly search for academic papers using keywords. Regarding the mineralization of the lakes, the reasons for their formation, as well as their size and depth, rigorous data exists for all of these. I will not repeat them in the video. When the water level of Pumayangkal is high, it overflows into Yamdrak Yangkal. As is well known, Yamdrak Yangkal is a lake of 1,000 islands with countless photography spots. If we were to vote for the best spot, the heart of Yamdrak would certainly be a candidate. In the autumn of 2023, the heart of Yamdrak turned a peculiar red color. This phenomenon has not recurred in the years since. Not far from the heart of Yamdrok is a large island called Yangbudu Island. There is a Yangbuduo monastery on the island. Obviously, entering and leaving requires a boat. Next, let's look at an old photo of Yamdrok Yangko. Anyone traveling from Lhasa to Yamdrok is familiar with this angle. This is on the road to Nagarzi, with Mount Noijin Kangsang in the distance. This photo was taken in 1938 by a British man. This is likely not the first photo of Yamdrok Yangko, because cameras were already widely popular by then. We know that Yamdrok Yangko is one of the 3 great sacred lakes. In fact, Yamdrok Yangko is also a giant power bank. Sounds strange, doesn't it? A pipeline connects Yamdrok Yangko to the Yarlung Sangpo below the mountain. When there is surplus electricity in the power grid, water from the Yarlung Sangpo is pumped into Yamdrok Yangko. When the grid is short on power, the water from Yamdrok Yangko is used to generate electricity. This pump storage system is still in operation today. The amount of water pumped in equals the amount released, ensuring that the water level of Yamdrok Yangko is not affected. When I learned about this, I searched through the videos on my hard drive for traces of the Yamdrok power station. I found a clip filmed in 2016 showing the tunnel entrance of the power station. The tunnel entrance is located in Zhemaleng village. Leaving the Yamdrok power bank, we arrive at the Qiangyong Glacier. The Qiangyong Glacier has multiple remnants of ancient glaciers. Different terminal moraines correspond to different glacial eras. For detailed research, you can search for relevant academic papers. Continuing our border journey, we arrive at the Chuojia Glacier. Chuojia Glacier is the official name, which has been unified in navigation software and academic literature. Next, we will leave the Loka region and enter the Shigatse region. This is Shiso, also known as Sangguang, so the true source of the Nanyang River. On July 10, 1954, a glacial collapse occurred at Shiso. The glacier slid into the lake, causing the water level to rise and the glacial lake to breach its dam. The downstream Nanyang River suffered a severe flood disaster. Over 400 people lost their lives, and thousands of houses were destroyed. Next to Shiso is Shimoso. Its Xizang name means yellow lake, which is quite fitting. In 2019, the area around Gaili village was freely accessible. I explored many glaciers that year. At the time, I saw a glacier on the satellite map, so I walked into the valley. But for a long time, I couldn't see any glacier. It turned out I had entered the wrong valley. When I cut across to the top of the moraine ridge, the magnificent glacier suddenly came into view. This glacier is called the Kumapu Glacier. Returning to the Kumapu Glacier in 2024, large chunks of ice are floating in the water. The glacier is accelerating its melt. Moving forward, we arrive at Kogabu. This is a lake with very high aesthetic value. By the shores of Kogabu, there is a border trade route leading to Bhutan. Therefore, Kogabu has been closed to tourists. Continuing westward along the Himalayas, we arrive at Mount Chomohari. Let's look at an old photo first. The photo was taken in 1904 at Towina village below Mount Chomohari. This military camp belonged to the British Army that invaded Xizang. The international context at the time was the great game between Britain and Russia. Britain was misled by certain rumors. The rumors suggested that Russian influence had already permeated Lhasa. Among those spreading these rumors was Kang Yui, who was taking refuge in Darjeeling. Regardless, the invasion of Xizang was an atrocious act. The leader of the army was Francis Younghusband. The British Army used advanced weaponry to carry out a massacre of the Xizang soldiers. Mount Chomohari bore witness to this slaughter. History and reality always tell us that the world is governed by the law of the jungle. Only when a country is strong can it avoid being bullied. Frederick Bailey, who explored the Grand Canyon, was also part of Younghusband's team. He took several photographs of this invasion. The British invasion reached Jiang's County. The Jiang fortress Zhongshan was the battlefield for the resistance against the British. This war against invasion ended in a crushing defeat, and from then on, British influence permeated Lhasa. Let's look at some old photos of Lhasa. This is a photo of the Potala Palace from 1900. The photographer was a Russian named Gambojob Sibikov. He was an ethnic Mongol from the area around Lake Baikal. This one is a photo of the Potala Palace taken by Bailey in 1904. A Japanese monk was also active in Lhasa from 1912 to 1916. This is a photo he took of the Potala Palace. His name was Bunkyo Aoki. The clearest photos were taken in 1939 by the British man Frederick Mackenzie. The photo of Yeongdrok Yeongko was also taken by him. When I saw Mackenzie's photos, I was curious why they were so clear. It turns out the negatives of these photos were very large, about half the size of an A4 sheet of paper. The resolution is extremely high, no less clear than a mobile phone from 2010. In that era, photography and cinematography equipment were already quite advanced. In Lhasa, one could even see Charlie Chaplin movies. This photo was taken by Germans in 1939. It was the team sent to investigate the Xizang race. Many expedition teams entered Lhasa during this period. The United States even filmed a color documentary. Today, tens of thousands of old photos of Xizang can be found in European museums. My first time in Lhasa was in 2011. I took a photo of the Potala Palace with a Nokia phone. Besides people, animals also entered Xizang. The elephants in the Potala Palace entered Lhasa from South Asia via jaunts. Let's return to Mount Chomohari. This is a photo of Chomohari taken by a man named Spencer Chapman. In 1936, he entered Xizang from Yadong and was captivated by the Chomohari snow mountain. After completing his work in Lhasa, he decided to climb Chomohari. Although his equipment was rudimentary, he succeeded. To this day, not many people have reached the summit of Mount Chomohari. Yet, Frederick Spencer Chapman completed the first human ascent in 1937. After World War II broke out, he joined guerrilla forces in Malaya to fight against the Japanese army. He fought on the front lines in the jungle, enduring countless hardships and narrowly escaping death. From this perspective, he was a lone hero. His wartime experiences later became a reference manual for Special Forces wilderness survival. The tough man's later years were bleak, and his body was plagued by illness. Driven by a fierce sense of self-respect, he committed suicide by gunshot in 1971. Today, let's look at Mount Chomohari, which Chapman first climbed. The Himalayas, where Chomohari is located, contain a large number of glacial lakes. Behind my motorcycle are the electrical and fiber optic cables leading to Yadong. Xizang's first communication line was laid from Yadong to Jants in 1904. For a long time, this road was a major trade corridor for Xizang. Every day, perhaps hundreds of people entered Yadong from Kalimpong. Personnel investigating Xizang during the Republic of China era also took this route back to the mainland. The route went through Jants and Yadong to India, then by boat to Shanghai. The elephants for the Potala Palace also walked from Chomohari to Lhasa. Since aerial photography is prohibited in Yadong, we go to the next stop, Gamba County. This is the Kuding Naima Glacier. It was once a relatively accessible glacier, but it was closed in 2025. There are 14 mountains in the world, exceeding 8,000 meters, arranged from east to west. The first is Kanchenjunga. The world's third highest peak sits right behind the glacier. Continuing west, we arrive at the Killing Canyon scenic area, and then to Zangso Lake. The snow mountain behind Zangso is Mount Ama Drime. When I made the last aerial documentary, it was still an unclimbed peak, but now there are records of successful ascents. In recent years, I've felt that with the end of the pandemic, domestic outdoor sports have developed rapidly, and mountaineering, trekking, and exploration are all progressing. What can you see from the summit of Mount Ama Drime? Let's use a drone to simulate it. With a 7x zoom, we look east toward Kanchenjunga. To the west are Makalu Lots and Mount Everest. This area is a dense zone of 8,000-meter peaks in the Himalayas. Modern mountaineering originated in the west. Before World War II, many 7,000-meter peaks had already been climbed. After the war ended, 8,000-meter peaks were also rapidly conquered. Unlike Westerners, the ethnic groups near the Himalayas are often not keen on climbing. They revere nature and respect the snow mountains as sacred. However, driven by honor and profit, everything has changed. Let's admire the view of Mount Everest from the summit of Mount Ama Drime. In the valley between Ama Drime and Everest, there is a border town called. The residents here are Sherpas. Although they share the same roots as the Sherpas in Nepal, the Sherpas in China do not participate in mountaineering assistance. Currently, there is only one road into Chentang. In the future, a road connecting Chentang to Kudang Township will be built. This will allow direct access from Chentang to the east face of Mount Everest. Trekking on the east face of Everest is now completely prohibited. In fact, one might even support a total ban on climbing Everest. Such a view may seem extreme, but the reasoning is worth considering. If we reflect on why people climb, once fame and fortune are stripped away, what reasons remain? If it is purely out of love, and the climber seeks no acclaim after reaching the summit, that would be worthy of respect. However, in reality, high-altitude mountaineering can often become a venue for personal vanity. What many take away is the glory of the summit. What is often left behind is the environmental impact of waste along the routes. In many things in this world, there is no absolute right or wrong. It's just a matter of perspective. If one were to start climbing one day, one would surely find high-sounding justifications for doing so. Here, We are looking at Lhotse and Mount Everest from the 10,000 sand dunes. From the Fuji La Pass, 5 8,000-meter peaks are visible. Kangsunjunga, Everest, and Lhotse no Makalu is blocked from view, followed by Cho Oyu and the 7,000-meter level Gauri Sankar, as well as Shishapangma, which lies entirely within China. Using Giles and chalk as the foreground, let's admire the Himalayan snow mountain range. In October 2019, a trek was made into a valley in Rongshar Gorge. The journey was in search of a specific snow mountain. The valley was silent, far from the hustle and bustle of the world. An elderly Xizang couple was herding livestock here. At the end of the valley is a glacial lake. The mountain in question is behind the valley. The summit of this mountain has a winged horn. The mountain is called Lunagri, with an altitude of 6,900 meters, but it is extremely difficult to climb. A Nepalese mountaineer reached the summit in October 2018 and brought back breathtaking aerial footage. The snow mountain, with its summit shrouded in a cap cloud, is Cho Oyu. We arrive at Rongshar Township in Rongshar Gorge. This is the new Rongshar, rebuilt after the 2015 earthquake. The brand new small buildings were constructed by the state and provided to the villagers. Significant investment in Xizang over many years has improved the local living conditions. Continuing west, we arrive at Shishapangma. The trek began from Air Village to approach the east face of Shishapangma. There is a trekking route from the east face to the north face. Every year during the National Day holiday, it attracts many heavy-duty trekking enthusiasts. However, the altitude here is extremely high, and every year, the mountain claims the lives of backpackers. Every time an accident occurs, police are mobilized for search and rescue. During one return trip, a rescue team was encountered. Being mistaken for a lost trekker led to a severe reprimand. From the angle of the east face, the main peak is obscured. We switch to the north face of Shishapangma, which is the location of the base camp. What you see now is the north face. On October 7, 2023, two experienced climbers came to challenge Xizang. Both were nearing the completion of all 14 peaks over 8,000 meters. Shishapangma was their final objective, and the pursuit of a record created an environment of intense pressure. As they neared the summit, conditions became treacherous. Tragically, multiple avalanches occurred on the slopes that day. The climbers and their guides were caught in the slides, leading to a devastating loss of life. This tragedy is a somber reminder of the dangers of competitive mountaineering. We must pay respect to the unpredictable nature of high-altitude environments. Bidding farewell to Shishapangma. We continue west to explore a new location. In some views, This is the most beautiful glacial lake in the Himalayas. The trip took place in the winter after the pandemic. The vehicle was parked near Piku, so despite the cold and a persistent cough, the journey continued. The road had been traveled many times during the day, so no track had been recorded. Unexpectedly, the path was lost in the night, and it was necessary to wait until dawn to continue. The trekking route involves visiting Guoqiang, so on the right, then Guru, so on the left upon return, and finally back to the starting point. Guoqiang so is a massive glacial lake, and walking on this ice is a unique experience. During a summer visit, it was impossible to get close to the glacier. The massive ice wall of Guoqiangso is remarkably sheer, appearing as if cut by a blade. 2 days later, the journey continued to the neighboring Goru-so. The glacier at Goru-so is more chaotic and has a different aesthetic than the wall at Guoqiang-so. Since the lake is frozen in winter, a view in autumn provides a different perspective. Guoqiang-so sits at an altitude of about 5,350 meters, slightly higher than Goru-so. During a summer trek, fish were discovered in the river. Such a cold place is not entirely barren in the summer. Nourished by the river water, rare plants grow in the vicinity, such as Mecanopsis, blue poppies. There are multiple glaciers and lakes near Guoqiang, so the neighboring lake is filled with floating ice blocks. On some maps, it is referred to as the Iceberg Lake. Next, we arrive at the Girong Valley. One Girong Valley reflects half the history of Xizang. Many major historical events took place here. Princess Brakudi entered Xizang through this valley. Wang Shuans of the Tang dynasty led his mission to India, famously conquering a kingdom alone. Padmasambhava entered Xizang, and the Qing dynasty military expeditions also took this route. In the past, if you asked about attractions in locals would recommend Langji. So, as the reflection in the lake resembles a Buddha, However, we outsiders prefer the snow mountains here. In 2019, I noticed construction starting on a black mountain peak. This turned out to be a stunning observation deck, accessible by motor vehicle. Standing on this platform, I lamented how such a beautiful place had remained hidden. While Mount Niobi in Sichuan claims to be the largest observation deck in Asia, I decided to give this platform a name, Asia No. One observation deck. To spread this name, one has to be persuasive. When friends ask for travel tips and gear, I'd tell them there is an Asia No. One observation deck at a specific location. Unsuspecting travelers began spreading the name. By 2023, it had become a sensation. However, I later learned it was a military facility, and it eventually closed to the public. This Labrador is named Aladdin, the dog from the Bike Hotel. The Langtang Larang Snow Mountain opposite belongs to Nepal, but the best vantage point is in Gyeongsang. There is a village in Gyeongsang called Rima, which is also an excellent spot for viewing snow mountains. Next, we head to a geological park, Gangdang National Geological Park. You likely haven't heard of it because I made the name up. About 26 kilometers south of Gyeongsang County, a road leads to Gangdang Township. This road passes through the Douala Pass. Looking west, from Mount Douala, a massive anticline runs from east to west. As geology describes, an anticline eventually forms a valley. The highway passes through the valley of this anticline. The Himalayas were formed by plate compression, and this anticline is clear evidence. I found many marine fossils in this valley. For instance, this piece might be a crinoid sea lily fossil. The discovery was entirely accidental. I had stopped to register at a checkpoint. There was a black dog at the checkpoint, and while interacting with it, I noticed the unusual shape of a stone on the ground. Fossils confirm that this area was once a vast ocean. Continuing forward through a pass, we see Mount Chamar to the south. After taking the cliffside road to Niang village, we witnessed magnificent large-scale folding in the valley. A geology expert, Mr. Wang, explained that the Gangdang area has undergone severe geological compression and possesses rich geological strata. It can be called a museum of sedimentary rocks. Therefore, we believe the Gangdang route is comparable to a national geological park. The mountain road from Niang village to Ning village is full of twists and turns. There is abundant wildlife along the way. Black wolves are very rare in the wild. Black fur is a recessive gene. A black wolf is only born if both parents carry this gene. Another possibility is the exchange of genes between wolves and dogs. After passing Ning village, I arrive at the Great Cliff. I first filmed this cliff in 2023, though some friends had filmed it earlier. When I posted a short video, I gave this cliff a name, the Great Himalayan Cliff. The seasons flow on. Winter turns to spring. In summer, we return to the Gangdang National Geological Park. Seeing Mount Chamar again, a herd of cattle now serves as the foreground. Along the Gangdang route, Mount Manaslu can be seen multiple times. In winter, the desolate Ning village is surrounded by highland barley fields. Mist and clouds drift around the Great Cliff. Leaving Gangdang and passing through Chenggu Township, we enter National Highway 219. Let's explore Loinbo Kangri. I first explored Loinbo Kangri in 2019. At the time, I saw a cluster of snow mountains on the satellite map and came to see if there was good scenery. I filmed Pulak Sakyong, which later became known as King Peak. Personally, I didn't find this mountain particularly appealing. Aesthetics are subjective, after all. In comparison, the main peak, Loinbo Kangri, is quite impressive. Loinbo Kangri is the highest peak of the Gangdais range. There is a rough road that circles Loinbo Kangri. Now we are directly north of Loinbo Kangri. In the wetlands, there is a family of 3 black-necked cranes. Black-necked crane chicks hatch in May or June. They grow extremely fast, reaching adult size in just a few months. After October, as the plateau turns cold, they begin to migrate to river valleys to overwinter. The Yarlong Sangpo Basin in Shigatse Longjub County and the Yagang River Valley are all overwintering sites. Some black-necked cranes even fly to Guizhou, Yunnan, or as far as Ladakh. When winter turns to spring, they fly back from low-altitude areas to the high plateau to begin a new cycle of nesting. Looking toward Loinbo, Hungary, from the perspective of the cranes, an explorer arrived nearby 120 years ago. He recorded Loinbo, Hungary with watercolor sketches. This man was Sven Hedin. Between 1906 and 1908, Sven Hedin conducted in-depth expeditions in Ngari and Shagatz. I saw the sketches of Loinbo, Hungary in his book. Comparing them, I found the angle to be remarkably close to the one where I filmed the cranes. This illustration comes from his book, Trans-Himalaya, Discoveries and Adventures in Tibet. In our context, Xizang. We circle Loinbo, Hungary to reach the western side. From this angle, Loinbo, Hungary is quite beautiful. Leaving the Gangdais Range, we continue along the Himalayas. Located in Jeonbuk County, we look toward the distant Annapurna. This is the 8th 8,000-meter peak of our journey. To the right is the 9th 8,000-meter peak, Daolajuri, which is also the last one visible from within Xizang. Continuing west, we arrive at Paryong town. This is the Makwan River wetland in the upper reaches of the Yarlung Sangpo. It is also an area where desertification is relatively severe. With westerly winds blowing year-round, sand dunes have taken on a crescent shape. Sven Hedin once searched for the source of the Yarlung Sangpo. In 1976, an expedition by the Chinese Academy of Sciences identified the Gima Yangzoing Glacier as the true source. However, around 2010, researchers discovered that the source should actually be the Yangtze Dongdong Glacier. When we study the sources of rivers, we find it can be a confusing matter. We usually agree that the source of the furthest tributary is the true source. Yet, the Tuotuo River, the official source of the Yangtze, is not the longest. The Dank River is longer and has a greater flow, but it originates from a marshland. The Tutuho River originates from the Jiangangerndiru Glacier. A glacier fits the poetic image of Yangtze's water, coming from the heavens much better. In the end, the marshland source lost to the glacial source. The official source of the Yellow River, Jiaring is neither the longest nor the one with the greatest flow. Its history is complex. The Tang and Yuan dynasties favored the Kurik as the true source. During the Qianlong reign of the Qing dynasty, Jiaring was designated as the official source. Scientific expeditions in 1978 confirmed that the Kurik has a greater volume of water and is longer. However, in the 1985 final review, Jiaring was still declared the winner. Ultimately, scientific data lost to historical and cultural tradition. A brief announcement. I will later produce an amateur documentary on the Yellow River from its source to the sea. The filming is complete, but I haven't had time to edit it. Let's return to the source of the Yarlung Sangpo. This is the watershed. On the left, the Yangtze Dongdong flows into the Yarlung Sangpo. The right side generally belongs to the Indus River basin. Meltwater from the right side glaciers flows west into Lake Manasorovar. When the water level of Lake Manasorovar rises, it flows into Lake Rakshastal. In ancient times, Lake Rakshastal could flow into the Lankan-Zangbo Sutlej River. Today, it is entirely an endorheic inland lake. On the right is the sacred Lake Manasorovar. On the left is Lake Rakshastal. In the distance is the sacred Mount Kailash. and behind us is Mount Namnani. Next, we arrive at Burong County. On the hill by the Peacock River in Burong are the ruins of the Peacock Kingdom. After the fall of the Tubo Empire, Tubo descendants came to Ngari and established 3 kingdoms: the Peacock Kingdom, the Guj Kingdom, and the Ladakh Kingdom. Therefore, India's current occupation of Ladakh is illegal. Next, we circle Lake Rakshastal. Lake Rakshastal is known as the Ghost Lake. There is a rumor about it, claiming the lake is bitter, undrinkable, barren, and devoid of birds or animals. This was intended to diminish Rakshastal in order to exalt Manasarovar. It is true that Rakshastal is saltwater. I have tasted it myself. However, the claim that it is devoid of wildlife is completely false. In winter, I personally saw thousands of birds on the western shore of Rakshastal. In fact, some rumors are easy to debunk. The most dangerous thing is copying and pasting without thinking. In terms of scenery, Rakshastal actually surpasses Manasarovar, though Manasarovar has the added prestige of being a sacred lake. The oldest photos of Mount Kailash are over 120 years old. The trade route from Ladakh to Lhasa passed through Mount Kailash. Kailash has witnessed all kinds of people: merchants, spies, devout pilgrims, and geologists disguised as pilgrims. In ancient Indian culture, the worldview was as follows. The center of the world was called Mount Meru. The 4 walls of Mount Meru were symmetrical and regular in shape, facing the 4 great continents of the world: Uttarukru, Purvavidaha, Jambudvipa, and Aparagoyonia. This cosmology directly influenced Hinduism, Buddhism, and Jainism. When followers saw Mount Kailash, they immediately identified it as Mount Meru. In the Xizang language, it should be pronounced as Gang Rinpoche. Leaving the sacred mountain, we head to Zanda County. Along the way, we pass the Klong ruins, which may have been the capital of the ancient Shangsheng Kingdom. Next, we arrive at the Daba ruins. These are the ruins of an ancient city contemporary with the Guge Kingdom. We now enter the Zanda Earth Forest National Geological Park to begin an exploration of an ancient lakebed. Combining published academic papers, we know that a massive ancient lake once existed here. At the edge of the earth forests, the level bed of the former Great Lake can still be seen. Below the lake bed is a sedimentary layer approximately 700 meters thick. The erosion of this sedimentary layer by water formed the earth forests. Beneath this 700-meter layer lie rocks from hundreds of millions of years ago. It is often difficult to describe a lake accurately with words alone, as the thickness of the sedimentary layer varies at every location. The basement rock beneath the sedimentary layers dates from the Jurassic to the Cretaceous periods. Geological research is an ongoing, incremental process. Perhaps in 10 years, new expeditions will overturn some of our current conclusions. Therefore, for in-depth study, one must consult the latest academic papers. Researchers are still studying how the Great Zanda Lake formed, why it disappeared, and its relation to the plateau's uplift. The earth forests were formed by rainwater erosion. Though seemingly chaotic, one can identify the contour lines of the same strata. Smaller earth forests are nested within larger ones, a geometric phenomenon known as a fractal. It is a fascinating natural occurrence. The ground where Tibetan wild asses Xizang now run was once the bottom of the lake. The Tibetan wild ass is a species unique to the Xizang Plateau and is reproductively isolated from common donkeys. A herd of blue sheep barl also lives nearby. Of course, I also encountered the Tibetan gazelle goa. The Tibetan wild ass, blue sheep, and Tibetan gazelle are all endemic species of the plateau. During the uplift of the Xizang Plateau, many animals and plants went extinct. Numerous animal fossils and ancient marine fossils have been found in the Xanda Basin. In the distance, the snow mountain with a rounded summit is Mount Kamet, located in India with an altitude of 7,756 meters. At the beginning of our video, in Peach Blossom Valley, we mentioned a Sherpa. This Sherpa accompanied the guerrilla leader Ronald Kaulbach on the Selwyn expedition. His name was Lua, and in 1931, he completed the first human ascent of Mount Kamet without supplemental oxygen. Those who have visited Angari know that the Xanda Basin is extremely desolate. The Himalayas here are not well known, and they receive far less attention than the Everest region. However, the civilizations behind these snow mountains are different. Has anyone wondered about the origin of the name Himalaya? The name comes from Sanskrit, behind the snow mountains. Mount Kamet belongs to the western section of the Himalayas. The snow mountains in this area nurtured Indian civilization. Ancient India also included modern-day Pakistan. The fertile lands depend on the nourishment of Himalayan meltwater. Snow mountains hold a significant position in India. In ancient times, looking north from the Indian subcontinent at the Himalayas, people believed this was the home of the gods. They meditated on models of sacred mountains and lakes, which ultimately corresponded to the lands of Angari. During the Age of Discovery, Portugal invaded India and occupied Goa. In 1624, a Portuguese missionary crossed the Himalayas to reach the Guj kingdom. This priest was named Antonio de Andrade. He built the first Catholic church in Xizang, at Saparang. Ultimately, this intensified internal strife in Guj and led to an invasion by the external enemy Lodek, resulting in the downfall of the Guj kingdom. Andrade was not the first foreigner to reach Guj. 600 years before him, the great Indian master Atisha entered Xizang via Gir. He was invited to the Guj kingdom to propagate Buddhist teachings. The Guj kingdom was never isolated from the world. It maintained trade with neighboring countries. The Himalayan passes that we cannot approach today were busy trade routes in ancient times. In the past, if merchants from Kashgar wanted to come to Lhasa, there was a mature trade route, crossing the Kunlun Mountains to Ladakh, and from Ladakh to Shikwanhe. Some Yarkon merchants even reached Ladakh, then headed south to India to take a boat to Mecca for pilgrimage. These are all recorded in history, allowing us to understand the world through the ages. There is a new road from the Guji kingdom along the Lankan Zangbo. The altitude of this road continually drops. We descend from the lake sedimentary layers to the basement rock strata. The earth forest is the lake sedimentary layer. The basement rock consists of sedimentary rocks from the ancient ocean. The highway in the video sits right on the contact surface between the two. This road leads to a place in Angari that produces Applesdia Township. The rest of the journey is the Jurassic Geological Highway. Along the way are spectacular folds of sedimentary rock. The deep incision of the river valley allows us to glimpse the Earth's rock layers. These sedimentary rocks are predominantly from the Jurassic period. Unfortunately, I only took a few photos with my phone at the time and did not capture aerial footage. There is a fork on this sedimentary highway that leads to Sarong Township. In Riba village of Sarong Township, there is a stone gate. If you trek to the top of the stone gate, congratulations, you will find fossils from the Jurassic era along the way. This is a marine fossil I found while trekking in ammonite. Because the fossils were exposed on the surface, I initially thought they were screws. After picking them up, I realized they were fossils. These marine creatures lived during the same period as dinosaurs and are now extinct. Mr. Wang explained that this stone gate geologically belongs to the Jurassic period. Therefore, I like to call this stone gate the Jurassic Gate. On a certain hilltop west of Zanda County, I take one last look at the Himalayas. The Himalayas haven't ended, but they are no longer accessible because India illegally occupies Ladakh on the northern side of the Himalayas. Continuing our border journey, we arrive at Pangong. So, the southern shore of Pangong belongs to the Ganges Range, while the northern shore belongs to the Karakoram Range. These videos were filmed many years ago. Now, aerial photography is strictly prohibited in the Pangong Tso area. In 2020, through a friend's introduction, I visited the Zhangcheng Glacier. This area already belongs to the Karakoram Range. The Zhangcheng Glacier has a pristine ice tongue. The front of the ice tongue is near 5,400 meters. At such a high altitude, small flowers can still be seen in summer. Leaving the Karakoram Range, we arrive at Changtang. This area is located near Bangda, so both Sven Hedin and the Dunhuang thief, R.L. Stein, once visited this place. By the lake shore, we encounter several wild yaks. The yak is a species unique to the plateau. There are approximately tens of thousands of wild yaks in nature. Compared to the domesticated yaks in Xizang, wild yaks are remarkably robust. Even though domesticated yaks have a more stable supply of food and shelter, they are becoming increasingly weak. In biology, this phenomenon is known as domestication syndrome. Parents watching this, please remember, you must let your children roam in the wild. Do not keep them caged indoors. Yaks have 60 chromosomes, as do the cattle of the plains. However, they are not the same species. They can crossbreed, but the resulting male offspring are sterile. These hybrid cattle are called DX. During his expeditions in eastern Xizang, King Dinward recorded these hybrid cattle. Today, we often see these Zhous in low-altitude areas like Nainchi. Their appearance is somewhere between a cow and a yak. However, when female Zhous continue to breed with male yaks, after several generations, the male calves can regain their fertility, which is quite fascinating. Continuing forward, we arrive at the Gulia ice cap in the western Kunglan Mountains. The Gulia ice cap is a dry, continental glacier, so its ablation is slow. It was generally believed that China's oldest glacier was located here. In 1992, a bottom-reaching ice core was drilled from the glacier. Isotope dating at the time showed the bottom of the Gulia ice cap was 700,000 years old. However, with the development of dating technology, skepticism followed. Using the latest technology on glaciers surrounding Gulia, researchers found that none predated the last glacial maximum, roughly 10,000 to 20,000 years ago. Subsequently, in 2015 and 2021, the Gulia ice cap was re-drilled for new ice cores. The new dating results were published in the journal Science Advances in 2025. The author is Professor Hu Shugi. The new data refutes the dating conclusions from the 1990s. The Gulia ice cap actually formed during the Holocene, roughly 10,000 to 30,000 years ago. For detailed data, refer to the aforementioned article. The age of almost all glaciers in Xizang is essentially limited to the Holocene, not to mention those maritime glaciers in eastern Xizang. So, if you see a blogger pointing at a glacier and calling it billions of years old, they are certainly talking nonsense. Scientists also extracted over 1,700 types of viral fragments from the Gulia ice core. Most are ancient viruses, but there is no need to fear they are no longer active. Bidding farewell to the Gulia ice cap, we head east toward the vicinity of Heishi Baihu North Black Rock Lake. There are vast expanses of volcanic rock here. Traveling along National Highway 216, you can see broken black volcanic rocks by the roadside. Unweathered volcanic rocks form these flat-topped mountains. Since volcanic rock is impermeable, many small puddles have formed. In 2022, during my first trip from Gaze to Minfeng, I encountered a magnificent herd of Tibetan antelopes. In the years since, I haven't seen such large herds again. They have migrated deep into the Changtang, far from human presence, to obtain Tibetan antelope cashmere for making shotush shawls. Large-scale poaching occurred in the last century among those who fought to stop this massacre. Besides Sonam Madarji, Dr. George Schaller is also worthy of remembrance. Next, we arrive at the middle route of Ngari. This is Rincheng. Though there are many lakes in northern Xizang, they often share similar characteristics. Unfortunately, I didn't encounter good weather for the ones worth introducing. This is Zabu Salt Lake, a rare natural lithium carbonate salt lake. The brine undergoes evaporation and crystallization, then is purified to obtain industrial-grade lithium carbonate. Battery manufacturers like BYD and CATL hold direct or indirect stakes here. The only drawback of Zabu Salt Lake is that its reserves and output are too small. Our battery manufacturers still rely primarily on imports. Continuing along the Ngari middle route, we arrive at Zari Namso. By the lake, there is a crescent-shaped bay resembling a bird's beak, known in geomorphology as a spit. Near the spit is an attached lake. In an ocean setting, such a lake is called a lagoon. But can an attached lake in an inland setting be called a lagoon? I asked Doubao AI, and it said it is a lagoon. I asked Google, and Google said it is not. I copied Google's result to Doubao, and Doubao immediately changed its mind. I copied Doubao's result to Google, and Google changed its mind too. The core issue is the definition of a lagoon. Different people and organizations provide different definitions. Some say the outer water body must be an ocean. Others say any body of water will suffice. Such ambiguous definitions are common in geology and geomorphology. So sometimes it's best not to overthink the details, but you can certainly explore the spit. There is a thought-provoking question. When we look forward, our position seems wide, while the tip looks narrow. But when we look back, the widths appear completely different. It's just like how people tend to magnify what is near and diminish what is far. Many feel their talents are unrecognized, but they are actually overestimating themselves. we circle the lake to Straw Hat Mountain, where the ancient shoreline forms the brim. Continuing around, we reach the northern shore. In November 2014, I came here while riding my motorcycle around China. It was already night, and due to confusing navigation feeling, like ghosts were blocking the way, I spent an unforgettable night camping by the lake. Continuing the loop, there are several large birds. We often see these birds in Xizang, and many call them vultures. In fact, they are Himalayan vultures, Himalayan griffins. True vultures are rare in Xizang. The Himalayan vulture may look ferocious, but the opposite is true. It is heavy and clumsy, unable even to catch a mouse. It never attacks other animals and almost never eats live prey. Born for the environment, it feeds exclusively on carrion. Despite its massive size, the Himalayan vulture can fly at great altitudes. Continuing the loop, the composite landform of spits and lagoons appears again. In another satellite lake, red objects are suspended in the water. Whether they are algae or silt remains unknown. The grasslands around Zarinamso are home to a large number of Tibetan wild asses, Xizang. Although the Xizang is still a Class 1 protected species, it will surely be downgraded in the next update. They are becoming overpopulated in Xizang, especially on the western grasslands. They compete with livestock for pasture, and they have almost no natural predators in the wild. The Xizang is a very joyful animal. It is not aggressive, and occasionally even races against cars. Finally, we switch to another great lake, Tangra Yangkou. We continue our journey clockwise around the lake. We already know that Tangra Yangkou is the deepest and bluest lake in Xizang. The salinity of the water is quite high. In summer, the vegetation along the shore turns green, losing its desolation. Highland barley is grown by the lake. Its English name is barley. Indeed, Highland barley is a type of barley. The eastern shoreline of Tangra Yangkou is even more beautiful. As this is a stronghold of the Bon religion, perhaps we should be circling the lake counterclockwise. On the southern shore of Tangra Yangkou stands the Dago Snow Mountain. Distant relatives of the Siberian husky appear. They are wolves. Today, all dogs on Earth belong to the wolf species. They share highly consistent genes and are the same species. They can interbreed. This is because dogs are domesticated wolves. However, wild wolves and domesticated dogs have developed significant differences in behavior. Wild wolves are generally monogamous, while a city husky, with plenty of food and shelter, might have many partners. It is generally believed that the genetic gap between dogs and wolves is widening. In tens of thousands of years, this difference might grow to the point where chromosomes no longer align, eventually evolving into two separate species, much like yaks and common cattle. After Tangra Yangkou, we arrive at a glacier in Nema County. Netizens call this the Cat's Paw Glacier, which is very fitting. Due to nature reserve policies, I have never visited the Porogongri ice field, so I can only visit this budget version of a glacier. Glaciers are a vital part of the Changtang ecosystem. Meltwater forms freshwater rivers, providing water for wildlife. There are many wild animals along the way. Continuing east, we reach the Xilingso water system. This lake is called Qiagui, so, with a channel leading to Xiling, so, and this lake is called Kuo, which also has a channel leading to Xiling, so, a single, unified Great Lake once existed here, covering both Xilingso and Qiagui-so. One method of lake research is excavating lakebed sedimentary layers. These layers can reconstruct historical climates and ancient life forms. Lakebed sediment has been excavated at Kuo. The larger lakes in northern Xizang have been studied in depth. Research on fossils in the Changtang confirms that northern Xizang was once a tropical rainforest. There has been human activity near Kuo since 40,000 years ago. The Noya Devu site is nearby, where a large number of stone tools were discovered. We won't delve too deeply into that. Now, let's circle Xiling. So, this small island is near the geometric center of Xiling, so, at the beginning of this century, Xilingso's area suddenly exploded, making it the largest lake in Xizang. The reason was rising water levels that submerged the shallow sandbars seen in the footage, swallowing up the satellite lakes. Many ridges on the northwestern shore of Xiling so are rugged and craggy. Numerous blue sheep burrow live here. One winter, I saw blue sheep drinking at the river. However, my favorite part of Xilingso is here, the Xizang archipelago. This is a chain of islands, and the one I am on is the smallest. How can one get to the island? The answer is by rowing. Let's look at the full view of the Xizang archipelago. The island I just stepped onto is that tiny dot in the middle. Here is a question for everyone. Xiling, so is salt water. So is the ice. It forms in winter salty. We usually assume that freezing squeezes out the salt. However, I tasted it in winter, and the ice was still salty. Winter winds and waves push the ice onto the shore, piling it into small hills. Leaving Xiling, so we head to Namso. If you ask me, which of Xizang's many large lakes has the best scenery, I still believe it is Namso, despite its heavy commercialization. Namso is backed by snow mountains, so its best views are concentrated on the northern shore. the Sacred Elephant Gate, Shengshan, Tianmen, and the 3 sacred stones are all located there. My favorite spot at Namso is actually here. On the map, this hilltop is called Engba. In 2017, I first arrived here on my motorcycle and captured aerial footage of the spectacular sandbars and peninsulas. Namso is a vital subject for scientific research on the Qinghai Xizang Plateau. The deepest part of Namso exceeds 100 meters. The scientific expedition team built a drilling platform on the lake. They have already drilled through 510 meters of sedimentary layers without yet reaching the bedrock. This means the lake bed sediment exceeds 510 meters in thickness. These sedimentary layers act as an ancient notebook from which information about prehistoric climates can be extracted. In comparison, the Zanda earth forest is also composed of sedimentary layers, which are easier to sample for study. The reefs near Angba Konglong are rugged and prominent. Internet users call this place Horseshoe Island. Numerous blue sheep burrow appear here. I didn't catch the blue sheep on camera, but I did photograph a certain bird. This is an extremely rare raptor of the plateau-bearded vulture lammergeier. There are only about 1,000 of them left in China, and only around 10,000 worldwide. Bearded vultures breed very slowly. This bird possesses a unique, special skill. It feeds on animal bones. Its nest is located right on the cliff face. Let's visit its bedroom, which is lined with sheep wool and Hoda ceremonial scarves snatched from the mountaintops. Engba Konglong also serves as a pasture for local herders. This concludes our introduction to Namso. Let's take a look at the full panorama of Engba Konglong. Next, we arrive at the Madika wetlands in Nagchu. The small puddles scattered across the wetland resemble the Sea of Stars, Xinshawai, at the source of the Yellow River. Steeds traversing the wetland look like tissue cells viewed under a microscope. Next, we head to Bunang Valley in Lahari County. At the end of the valley is a glacial lake. There are 2 mountains nearby with regular shapes. The higher one is Mount Karcho. Our journey then takes us to the Yiga Glacier in Nayu Township. At the beginning of this video, we mentioned how Ward traveled through the Yegang Canyon to Nayu. After arriving in Nayu, Ward surveyed the Yiga Glacier. That was on August 20th, 1935. At that time, the ice tongue of the Yiga Glacier reached the bottom of the canyon, according to his travelogue. Today, the glacier has retreated by a vertical distance of over 300 meters. Next to the Yiga Glacier is the Zhayang Glacier. In 2020, the Jiangsu Glacial Lake breached, triggering a downstream flood. The bedrock beneath the Yiga Glacier is granite. The hard granite has resisted glacial erosion. Ward's early photographs have become vital references. For example, research on the Aza Glacier in Zayu used Ward's glacier photos to assess the extent of glacial shrinkage. I couldn't find his photos of Yiga, only his written descriptions. At the top of the Yiga Glacier is a pointed snow mountain called Chukibo. On the right side of the screen is a valley, which is also an ancient trail. Ward took this path, crossing the Luakin La Pass to reach the Kongpo-Jiamda region. The Yiga Glacier area is densely packed with snow mountains. There is an unremarkable peak called Changdazi. Evidently, it looks better from a ground perspective. Our journey continues through Banbar County, Biru County, Tenkan County, and Chamdo City. In the valleys of Gunling Township, there are 2 glaciers. The glaciers exhibit distinct wavy layers. These are called glacier ogives, similar to the growth rings of a tree. Near Jinling Township, I again photographed blue sheep. Although I encountered them on the Zanda grasslands, they primarily stay in the mountains. This is the Jungara Glacier in Banbar County. In winter, the glacial lake freezes. A few years ago, one could enter the glacier. Now, to protect the glacier, approaching it is prohibited. In Luoya village of Banbar Town, there is a glacial lake called Zhenmu, so the corresponding glacier is the Zhendun Glacier. When I first came to explore the ice cave, there were no footprints at all. This is the largest ice cave I have encountered in Xizang over the years, though it is not the longest. There isn't much more to say about glaciers. Professional research is quite dry. So, let me sing a song for you.
世上只有妈妈好，有妈的孩子像个宝。世上只有妈妈好，有妈的孩子像个宝。
After the song, we set off again and arrive at Shading Township by the Salween River. Before the liberation, Shadingzhang was established here. A zhang is equivalent to a county. In the Peach Blossom Valley segment, we mentioned the guerrilla leader Ronald Callback. He crossed the mountains from Peach Blossom Valley and entered the Salween Basin for mapping. He arrived at Shadingzhang in December 1935. Callback recorded the nearby Tibetan eared pheasants and the taxation situation in Shadingzhang. He concluded that it was an area with a well-developed livestock industry. He also introduced the salt situation. Previously, people consumed red salt from the Lanking River Mekong. The salt here is the white salt from the Changtang. Callback's team conducted an extremely thorough investigation of the Salween River. However, when they neared the source, the expedition was blocked. The Salween is the most hidden river in Xizang. Most people only see it at the 72 turns. we arrive at the sacred Mount Sapu. I first came here in the winter of 2017 when Sapu was already becoming popular online. I still believe Sapu looks better in summer, though the entrance fee is higher then. Once, I was blocked from the parking lot by the ticket price, but I found a surprise instead. A Tibetan blue bear appeared. The formal name for this bear is the Tibetan brown bear. Most bears on the high-altitude grasslands of Xizang are Tibetan brown bears. They are often active at night, visiting garbage dumps for food. I tracked this bear and found it flipping over rocks to lick up ants. The blind bear of northeast China is the Asian black bear. The two have the same number of chromosomes, but their genetic differences are quite large. They can no longer interbreed. However, polar bears and Tibetan brown bears can get a marriage certificate. This is because their genetic differences are not yet so great that they cannot exchange genes. Bidding farewell to Sapu, we arrive at the Puja Snow Mountain. A news report about the Puja Snow Mountain in 2016 misled many people. The report claimed that the Puja Snow Mountain developed a large number of hanging glaciers. However, the glaciers there are actually valley glaciers, not hanging glaciers. It can only be said that the original writer was not professional enough. In China, some geographical misconceptions are entirely driven by commercial interests. For instance, the Dangsha in Zhangzhou is not actually a Dangsha landform. There isn't much else to tell about the Puja Snow Mountain, so let's talk about the animal I filmed here, the Tibetan sand fox. The Tibetan sand fox became famous online due to its perpetually bitter or stoic facial expression. Their primary food source is the pikas of the grasslands. In the wild, Tibetan sand foxes are monogamous and maintain exemplary family units. Whether among mammals or the animal kingdom as a whole, monogamous animals are actually in the minority. Foxes, wolves, and dogs all belong to the family Canidae. They share a common trait, frequent and persistent urination for territorial marking. Moving forward, we arrive at Xizang Monastery, a major temple of the Bon religion in Tenkang County. The oldest known civilization on the plateau is the Shengsheng civilization. The Shengsheng civilization gave birth to the indigenous religion, Bon. Although Bon was impacted by the arrival of Buddhism, it did not disappear entirely. The remaining Bon traditions help us research the Shengsheng civilization. Shengsheng had its own language and a mature writing system. Due to the rise of the Tubo Empire and the promotion of the Xizang script after the plateau's unification, the Shengsheng language gradually vanished from spoken use, but the script remains. The academic community generally believes that the Shengsheng script was influenced by Indian and Central Asian scripts in its form. However, its pronunciation may share linguistic roots with Chinese. Over 200 years ago, Western scholars, missionaries, and colonial officials came to the East. When they were simultaneously exposed to Chinese, Burmese, and the Xizang language. They noticed similarities in pronunciation and grammar. This eventually led to the proposal of the Sino-Tibetan language family concept. This illustrates the intricate and ancient connections between these civilizations. Now we arrive at I worked here for a month in 2016. In my spare time, I used a Phantom 3 for aerial photography. Back then, the resolution of drones was poor. Now the equipment has been upgraded, but flying is often restricted. Currently, if caught flying illegally, one might have to perform prostrations all the way to Lhasa to atone. The Zak and Ankh rivers converge in Chemdo to become the Lanking River Mekong. By the Lankang River, there is a 1,000-year-old salt field. In ancient times, salt was a vital necessity of life. The guerrilla leader Ronald Callback once consumed the red salt produced here. Early foreigners entering Xizang noticed a phenomenon. Many Xizang people on the plateau suffered from goiters and large thyroids. We later learned this was caused by a severe iodine deficiency on the plateau. Today, we solved this problem by adding iodine to edible salt. The roads from Yunnan into Xizang were both the ancient Tea Horse Road and the ancient Tea Salt Road. The salt from Yangying was also a best-selling commodity. Has anyone wondered why, despite Yunnan's rich resources, ancient trade was dominated by tea? Why was tea so important? We follow the ancient Tea Horse Road to Rongwu. This is the Ligu Glacier. The Ligu Glacier has retreated significantly over the past decade. Let's compare. I captured aerial footage in both 2017 and 2018. However, at that time, it was mainly from a tourist's perspective to capture the scenery, not a research-oriented panoramic overview. I have supplemented the melted areas of the glacier in the image on the right. The ice on both sides of the glacier is melting rapidly. In these 7 years, 1 kilometer of the glacier has vanished. As a very important glacier in Xizang, the academic community has already studied Ligu in depth, so I won't repeat the details. The meltwater from the Ligu Glacier flows into Lake Ranwu. Lake Ranwu is famous because it sits right by the national highway. However, compared to Xizang as a whole, it can only be considered average. Our itinerary is as follows. After arriving in Bomi, we detour to Medak. Bomi has many clear days in winter, making it an excellent season for viewing snow mountains. We arrive at Galangla, which deserves a detailed introduction. The zigzag road on the mountainside is the old Medhog Highway. With the tunnel now completed, Meddog is accessible year-round. The summer and winter scenery of Galangla are vastly different. As the drone climbs higher, many snow mountains come into view. Namha Barwa reappears. The old Mad Dog Road is closed to vehicles. Summer is suitable for trekking. Along the way, there are many rare plants such as Mechanopsis, blue poppies, Cypripedium, Himalaicum, and Podophyllum, Hexandrum. After crossing the pass on the old Medog Road, one reaches the Gawa Long Heavenly Lake. Snowfall is frequent on the Medag Highway in spring. In nature, it is relatively rare to find woody plants that can produce vibrant flowers and grow very tall. Rhododendrons are such trees. Outside of the Himalayas and the Hinduan mountains, most rhododendrons are small. In Europe, they even grow as shrubs or creep along the ground. Consequently, European plant hunters came to China in a greedy quest to collect rhododendron seeds. Since natural sciences started late in China and the West was at the forefront, these botanists named these rhododendrons after themselves. There are many flowering trees in Medhog. One of my personal favorites is the magnolia. In late March, we entered Medhog from Galang around the 80K mark. There are many of these magnolias. Its scientific name is Magnolia campbelli, the union-sizing magnolia. The plant hunter, Frank Kingdon Ward, recorded this species. I also filmed pink Magnolia campbelli on the Yunnan side of the border. Following the Meddag Highway to the Wudang waterfall, the vegetation changes as the altitude drops. Historically, the Earth's climate cycles between warm and cold. When major ice ages arrived, many animals and plants went extinct. However, the Meddag area, with its massive elevation drop, was more inclusive and served as a refuge. This place is a paradise for flora and fauna. The second comprehensive scientific expedition is ongoing, with new species being discovered every few days. Yet, the biodiversity in Medog is so rich that our current research is far from sufficient. By the Yarlung Songpo, there are several flowering trees that look like silk cotton trees, bombax, but upon closer inspection, they are not. These are likely Erythrina arborescens, coral trees. A massive honeycomb hangs from the top of an Erythrina. The Erythrina arborescens is not a protected rare tree, nor is that honeycomb a protected insect. However, I don't recommend climbing the tree for honey, as the Erythrina is covered in thorns, and the bees in this type of hive do not produce honey. Next, we deviate from the Medgog Highway to head toward Gandeng Township in Upper Medgog. Traveling upstream along the Yarlong Songpo, the road consists entirely of rugged mountain paths. This is Gandeng Township. Opposite Gandeng is Senglong Peak, also known as Gampalapo. Whether in the diaries of the spy Frederick Bailey or the plant hunter Frank Kingdon Ward, the name used for this snow mountain is Sanglong. The winter sunrise illuminates Songlong Namha Barwa and Gyala Peri. This is the starting point of the Himalayas. The sun rises as the full moon sets in the west. 100 years ago, in 1924, Ward traversed the core area of the Yarlung Songpo. 100 years later, the number of explorers in the Yarlung Songpo core area has not increased. Instead, there are even fewer. One reason is that the secrets of the Yarlung Songpo have been largely revealed. The cost of exploration is high, while the rewards are few. capturing aerial footage of the Yarlung Sangpo core area, especially the Sangpo Badong waterfalls, has always been my long-cherished wish. At the beginning of our video, we also filmed Gyala Peri, but that site is too far from the great waterfalls. The ridge stretching across the front of Gyala Peri is called Xizang. This is an excellent vantage point, though it is clearly not easy to reach. The sunset turns red as the day ends. If this forest has a master, it is undoubtedly the local Mampa and Loba people. Without the assistance of locals, it is difficult for outsiders to successfully traverse this area. This was once the final mist on this planet. When the drone flies over Xizang La, the great waterfalls will appear. Due to various reasons, I was unable to reach the Zangpo Badong waterfalls. The drone only captured the falls without doing them justice. Our video ends here. I'll leave you with a panoramic photo of the Grand Canyon. A few closing words for those of you who have watched the entire video. Most animals on our planet live in the wild. Only humans can find themselves in cities made of steel and concrete. When you feel that life is dull or find yourself in low spirits, please remember that nature is our fundamental dojo place of practice. Please remember to come home.
我现在想办法让那个摩托车过河。走流沙，上面的马都能去，我也能去。看见了，太美了，哇！太好看了，太蓝了，好激动，好蓝。